Hello and welcome back to Damage Reports. Today we've got a little something special for you. We normally talk about Star Trek in the 21st century, and today's episode we're going to be talking about Star Wars. Not just Star Wars episodes 7, 8, and 9. We'll be giving a sort of full review both of the timeline of the films coming out and what were our feelings then and now on those movies. Before we get started, with me as always is Mike. Mike, episodes 7, 8, and 9. Both you and I are big Star Wars fans. I can safely say that because every time we're talking about Star Trek, we've done it this is episode 6, so we've done it 5 times now. 3 of the times, it's like, let me tell you about Star Wars real quick, son.
Yeah.
For 20 minutes of like an hour and a half, we will just go. No one asked us to, and we'll just go into it. So obviously we are two middle-aged geeks with passionate feelings about Star Wars. So before we go any further, so that people can get just kind of an idea, episode 7, 8, 9, we won't be looking at Rogue One or the Han Solo movie or the other Disney stuff or Mandalorian. We're just going to be focusing on 7, 8, 9. And out of the 3, 7, 8, 9, we're both going to tell you right off the bat which we feel is the best of the 3. I am shocked by my answer because I sat and really thought about it. And I got to go with episode 7, a movie I didn't like when I first watched it. I left the theater going like, that was, BB-8 was cool. That was about it. Mike, you saw 7, 8, and 9. What was your favorite one of the 3?
8, without a doubt, and it hasn't changed since then. There's no question about it. The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, or it's my favorite sequel trilogy movie, and it is my second favorite overall.
Wow. Excellent. Okay. I would like to say something before we go further, too, because I keep thinking about it. I watched a couple other videos about
people firing me?
Yeah, you're fired. No, get out. There seems to be this huge, kind of go-to phrase of Disney failed Star Wars, the Star Wars failure. There seems to be a lot of videos and review.
I see things in my YouTube timeline that are always whatever title of Star Wars was the greatest cinematic failure ever. And it's like, fuck off. You nerds need to watch more movies to figure out what a bad movie is.
Yeah, that's my first thought is, one, you've never seen a bad movie then. You didn't see, you guys didn't have to live through did you see, Frank Miller's The Spirit?
Even The Spirit is a competent movie. Everyone decides to go oh, I saw such a bad movie. It was called The Room. And it's like, well, you'd be surprised that The Room is very competent compared to some shit that's out there. Anytime someone says this was the worst movie ever and it's a mainstream movie, it's like, shut up, grow up.
So, but even if we were to go into action films, all 3 of these Star Wars movies have issues, and we're going to go over those issues. As far as
action films, or
what I'm saying, just these films have issues, be it writing or whatnot. If we're talking about action films in the last, I guess now it's been 5 years that the first one came out in 2015.
Yeah, first one came out December. I can't even remember the date.
Yeah, but it was 2015. I think Disney bought Lucasfilm in 2013. In the last 12.
Not to be pedantic. It's just
no.
It was it's 2012 is when they bought it, and then turned them around really quick. And the whole plan was that they were going to come out 15, 17, and 19. With the spin-off movies being in between. So it was supposed to be Christmas. Did they announce that it was originally going to be May and then they pushed it back? I don't remember, but it was always going to be that it was going to be every other year. And then we have what we have now, where we're in just this weird holding pattern. But yeah, this all started less than 10 years ago.
That was, and I've been notoriously wrong many a times, but that was the first thing that scared me, was reading the Kathleen Kennedy interview. A producer I like, she has a great batting history. But she said, oh, we're going to come out with a Star Wars movie every year or every other year. That was already ugh, that's never a sign of quality. When you say, oh, Marvel or DC is going to come out with, a movie every year, every 2 years, cool. They have 60 years of stories to pull from.
Yeah.
So there is a lot, there's we still geeks will argue all the time about how come this character hasn't gotten a movie yet. Like we're really waiting for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and there are many great superheroes out there that have not been touched, you know, and it just is what it is. Some properties are easier to get made into movies and some aren't, but Marvel and DC both could make 2 movies a year for 10 years, 20 years, and it would be crazy different and have a full rich script each time. And I
Yeah.
can say that with complete confidence. Star Wars, not so much. Star Wars is very limited. Is designed to be just kind of a very basic story of good versus evil.
See, I don't know if I agree with that, because I think Star Wars can be what it Star Wars can be all of those things. I don't think the most vocal fans will allow it to ever be anything more than it is. If you looked at Marvel now, and I mean, there are people out there on Twitter that are like really like just wretched assholes that are like to say that Marvel is just pandering to diversity and what have you. I've stayed away from reviews of the Avengers video game that just came out. You and I were critical of how like generic and actiony it looked,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess the big controversy now is that people are mad that Kamala Khan is the main character,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, who cares?
Who
People
cares?
love her.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. Let it be. But so many people are angry about that I don't think I think what you're seeing now with Marvel and the way that people react to their stuff is what's always happened with Star Wars. People are unwilling to let it change.
Yeah.
Marvel at least had a good 40, 30 years of change between the 60s and the 90s. I'd say from the 60s to the Clone Saga or to the Onslaught era, where they were willing to take chances. But I think the Onslaught and then the Heroes Reborn stuff, where they brought in Lee and Liefeld to do stuff, I think that's when fans decided to start getting angry and say, this isn't my Marvel anymore. I don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a good 30 years into it. And now there are people that are vocal about that and like want, like, this isn't how my comics used to be.
Yeah.
Star Wars has always been that way. And I think the reason that we never saw Star Wars fans act like that is because there weren't that many movies to back it up. But now that we have this glut of movies, people are now being loud and saying, I don't want anything new. I want those first 3 movies over and over again.
Yeah. And one of George Lucas, for as flawed as a writer and filmmaker as he is, or inventive, because he did do some stuff that blew everybody away. My favorite interview with him is a Vanity Fair in '99, where the interviewer straight out asked him, people don't like this Jar Jar Binks character. What do you think about that? And he said, you know, the first movie, people didn't like R2-D2 and C-3PO. The second movie, people didn't like Yoda. The third movie, nobody liked the Ewoks. Now you don't like Jar Jar. If you don't like my silly Muppets, go watch Matrix and leave my movies alone. And I was like, that is maybe the most understanding his own art I've ever heard out of George Lucas, where it's very much like, I know I put goofy stuff in there. And, you know, there's been great makings of where he talks about like, oh, there's got to be some form of fantastic in it.
I never realized how much of that was pulled from until I actually like watched The Hidden Fortress. And I can't stand the 2 bumbling guys in that. Like, it's one, they do some pretty offensive stuff based on modern standards. But I understand that. And I would never be like, I hated those characters. They served a purpose. And I think that people aren't willing to let things serve whatever the creator's purpose is anymore. Like, we hear about people not liking the droids or not liking Yoda or not liking the Ewoks, but they still liked the movies. You can, up until the prequels came out, people would still be like, you know, I didn't like Jedi. It's my least favorite of the 3, but I'll watch all of them. And then somewhere along the line, it got territorial, and it was like, fuck Jedi, I'll never watch that again. And I don't like that.
And I think a lot of people just don't understand, like, writing history, which I know is a condescending comment, and it won't be my last of the night. Let's go back to Shakespeare. Shakespeare always had the fool character. The Tempest the B plot of Tempest is two goofs who convince a monster that they're kings, and it doesn't even fit in to the main plot until very much towards the end, and it's very shoehorned. So the character of the fool's been around forever. It's one of those things that it's a writing trope, but it's a writing trope for a reason. Like, if we didn't want the fool, if we wanted to get rid of you want to see a movie with no fool, watch the film Dark City. Like, Dark City is a brilliant film, right? No one went to see it. That movie's like this brilliant piece of art that bombed, and it is because it's really lacking any sort of like humor to it. It's a very serious, there's nothing wrong with doing a very serious sci-fi film or a very serious sort of actiony
Something
film.
just hit me by you just saying all this right now. There is no character like that in the sequel trilogy.
You mean in
I don't
7, 8,
think in
9,
7, 8,
or
or 9 there's a character that fits any of those roles. And
well,
I just realized that.
I think they tried to do a dual combo with Finn. And Finn is our audience, which we'll get into in a minute. Finn is really an audience point of view character.
Let's
And
hold
he
that
is,
one.
yeah. But getting back to, because you can see we're going to be very tangent-y on this list. Talking about
this is a conversation. We're not a show. We're like friends talking. And if you guys are watching it, enjoy it. But like, don't come to us for format.
Yeah, I guess.
Does that anymore? It's like the worst thing is when like people are like so beholden to a format on a podcast. It's like, you guys are two people with microphones you bought at Kmart and a laptop. Like, you guys are going to be professional. Just talk.
Well, we will, but it does make it easier for editing. But
don't edit.
Okay,
don't edit. Just put it out.
It.
That's the problem. Like, people just put it out. Put the raw file on YouTube. That's what we need to be doing.
So I'll say this to everybody out there that thinks these movies are a failure, that they failed. Why did Disney buy Lucasfilms and Star Wars, and why did they make Star Wars films? Were they going for some sort of artistic statement? Were they going for the Oscars? Like, oh, this is going to be our big award-winning movies. Or were they going for money-making entertainment? They were going for money-making entertainment.
I would go so far as to like knock entertainment off of there. They were going for money-making ventures.
And none of these films, and I have issues with all three of them, none of them failed.
I have issues with I have issues with 4 of the 5 released of the new era.
Oh, really? I didn't even see Solo. I just walked. Okay. I was like, I can't. I know who Han Solo is. I'm good. Like, that was my attitude. And I was like, I have a breakdown as a geek every now and again, where it sometimes does feel like we're being exploited. And as a human. Yeah, but that's secondary. But it does feel like if Batman's in a movie, they know we'll buy a ticket. And so there's been a couple of times where The Amazing Spider-Man, I didn't see them in theaters, and I didn't watch them until a friend of mine, Thor, made me watch the first one. And then I watched part of the second one. I was just dying laughing. Spider-Man's too important to me to watch them decide to make their own story with him that doesn't have anything to do with anything. And nothing in that movie, in either of those movies, looked very interesting.
I think Spider-Man is also a good point to bring up when you talk about nerd audiences not accepting a thing. Like, the big controversy now that people still complain about on Twitter a year and a half after a movie has come out is that the Andrew Garfield movies are good and the Tom Holland ones aren't, because the Tom Holland ones just has him slobbing all over Tony Stark. And it's like, okay, we had to have an in somehow. Like, your Spider-Man still exists. If you don't like this one just because he like worships Iron Man, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you have to have like some kind of like reason for this character to exist within this framework. And would you have rather not had him in, or would you rather have had him have that storyline? Yeah. So it's like you got to pick and choose. Do you want something as what I thought was just poorly conceived like the Garfield movies, or do you want to make the concession that you have to have Tony Stark in this one? And I think it belies like people and how long they've been fans of stuff. Like the first issue of Spider-Man was him trying to join the Fantastic Four to make money, and because he dug Reed Richards.
Yeah.
So like just put Tony in there for Reed, and it's the same story.
And I'm a toxic geek many times over, but I'm also
Yes, go on.
I'm also happy when I'm wrong. When the Ultimate storylines were coming out, and I didn't like those, and then when they brought out Miles Morales, I didn't like that. I was like, come up with new characters, quit ripping off old ones. Then Spider-Man
Stop jamming diversity. You said, quote, stop jamming diversity down my throat.
How dare you?
If I want another Spider-Man, I want him to be white.
Exactly.
I'm reading directly from this list.
Exactly. And I went to go see, somebody made me go watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I forget what it was, and I was watching it like this. I couldn't have been more a hater.
Sad
Middle-aged man. And something happens in the middle of the movie, and
talk about it. I mean, it's been out for
yeah. We're going to talk about all these movies, so spoilers. And if you're watching this before you've seen episodes 7, 8, and 9, or
you got issues,
you've got issues, and we want to ruin things for you because you should.
Or you're one of those people that just watches videos to get what other people say, so that you look like you know what you're talking about. And you people make me sick. Like, go out and
we hate you.
Get your own opinions.
Yeah, it's if you're watching, we just hate you.
No, the people that just watch to form opinions rather than go and like get life experience, even if it's a life experience of watching a movie. Come on, go watch the movie.
So they kill Spider-Man. They kill the Peter Parker Spider-Man in the Miles Morales universe, and Miles Morales, before the Peter Parker is killed, gets powers that are like Superman, except more. He can turn invisible. He can do all sorts of weird shit. And I didn't give a shit about him. And then when Peter Parker died, I was very much, because there's so much about guilt in the Spider-Man storytelling, and about taking responsibility and carrying the burden, that I was like, Miles Morales, you got to step up. You got to do this. You got to start like saving everybody. You're the new Spider-Man. Get to it. And by the end of it, I was absolutely in love with Miles Morales. So
I've got to point out that we decided to do a Star Wars episode of our Star Trek podcast, and we're talking about Spider-Man for 10 minutes.
So to end that tangent, let's say, did Disney set out to make everybody happy, or did they set out to make money? They set out to make money. They bought the Star Wars and Lucasfilms, I think, for $500 million.
I don't even know.
It was something. It was crazy. It was like $500 million, and then
whatever it is, they've already recouped it.
They recouped it
by the time by the time
middle
Rise
of last
Skywalker came out.
No, it was like before Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
it was like Last Jedi hitting DVD, and the other two films had, because they split the money all the time, one with theaters and then with DVD with like the stores that are selling it. So you have to cut it in half, but they had made back that $500 million in a couple years, and they still own it on just the movies. And now they just own it for life. So is this a failure? No, these absolutely succeeded. Are there issues with all three movies? I would say yes. There might be somebody else in this, podcast recording that feels that one of the movies doesn't have any problem, but that's fine. But
no, I recognize like not everything's perfect, but some have more flaws than the others.
That is without a doubt. So, did Kathleen Kennedy fail? No. And
I want to point out the people that like talk crap about Kathleen Kennedy don't seem to understand what her job is and how long she's been doing that job and why she has the job. That's what infuriates me when people are like, we got to fire Kathleen Kennedy. It's like, you're going to fire the woman who produced many of the top 20 movies of all time. That's just saying money making, not even mentioning like the cultural cachet that the movies she produced have had.
And if you're over 35, Kathleen Kennedy produced your favorite movies.
Yeah.
Okay. That's that. Like, you don't know it, but maybe IMDb checker. So, she was part of that Amblin group that was just making great film after great film after great film. So having her take the helm is probably the smartest decision Disney made.
It wasn't even Disney's decision. Like George, like I know the fucking guy. I put George,
Big G in you hanging out. Yeah.
let's put all pretenses out there, or any kind of like biases out there. I put George and Steve onto the Shrek 4D ride at Universal when I worked at the park. And I will say that Steven Spielberg is one of the nicest guys I've ever met.
Oh man, that's wonderful.
That's all I'm going to say about meeting Steve and George.
All right. So
But
yeah, you can go. Hey, I met them. I can call them by their first names. Fuck you guys.
no, they were both nice guys. They were just there to ride the ride. It's interesting that Steven Spielberg has such a stake in Universal still, because of like the history of him and Universal.
Yeah.
That it was Shrek 40, and they were like, well, this is the day that Steven is going to come by. And it's like, why? Because he wants to write everything before it opens to give input. It's like, cool. That's not a bad problem to have. Right. So Lucas was deciding to sell Lucasfilm. He wanted to retire. He put Kathleen Kennedy in charge, and everyone was like, this is bizarre. Like, nothing's really happening with Lucasfilm right now. They're probably going to make Indiana Jones 5, but there's nothing going on right now except that and the Clone Wars TV show, which I think had already ended. And then a few months later, it was like Disney has bought Lucasfilm. And they were like, okay, that's what he was doing. He was putting her in charge so that when they bought it, he still had his hand-picked successor be in charge of it. And and it goes back to that too. Anytime you want to talk crap about Kathleen Kennedy, you're talking crap about George Lucas and his decision for where he wanted his company. But you're also trying to ignore the fact that you all hated George Lucas after the prequels. So who do you care about, really?
Yeah. And I would go into, you feel differently, but I would go into these three movies going, cool, we bought Star Wars. What is our Star Wars stories? Mm-hmm. And it is limited. Really, from my point of view, it's like we got a council that's dead, a group of space wizards that's dead, a family that's really fucked up, and some cool ships. And don't forget those laser swords, because people seem to really like them. So I would actually argue that like if I was to buy Marvel right now, I'd be like, well, let's start looking at any of my 50 million properties I can do with this. If I bought DC, I'd be thinking that. If I bought Disney's films, you would have so many more properties and outlets to do. With Star Wars, you don't. Like, there was a joke when Solo was coming out, they're going to do a Chewbacca movie about how he gets that, little belt. And that's a joke because that's funny because there's not much about Chewbacca. That's about it. Like, he's got a belt and he hangs out with Han Solo. So the idea that you would leap off saying like, hey, we're going to come out with a movie every year or 2 years, definitely that made me nervous. And I thought, well, they're just going to shoot out crap. And each one of these films, I didn't see Solo, I did see Rogue One, but each Star Wars film, I left the theater, I was very entertained, but I left the theater going like, well, here's what I would have done differently. I did not leave it going, wow, and I do
that with everything, and I try not to. Like, I'm such a huge fan of the Marvel movies. I still do that with every one of those movies, but I'm not going to then call for the writers' heads or say, you guys need to rewrite this. I just disagreed. I'm different with the DC movies just because I feel like they went really astray with those. But yeah, these Star Wars movies have entertained me. So what else can I ask for?
Yeah.
And I'm even worse because I'll say this. I've seen all the new Star Wars movies. I haven't paid for any of them. Because of my job. Like I get to watch them as part of my job. Mm-hmm. So am I part of the
Mike's
problem?
A pirater. Like, that's his professional job. So he gets to see everything.
Someone today asked me what I thought of Mulan. And I was like, I'm not going to pay $30 to see Mulan. I'll see it for free. And they were like, well, why don't you just download it? I was like, you know what my job is. Like, how dare you ask me that?
Exactly.
And it's like, well, no, what's the problem? And I was like, because that would be me trying to get rid of my job, asshole.
Yeah. It's also like, oh, you work at a bank? How often do you rob it?
Like, you must be rich.
Yeah, you must be rich. You must be robbing that bank all the time. Like, that's not bright, guys. So we're going I would like us to now go through 7, 8, and 9. We're going to talk about our first reactions after seeing it, and what our hopes and expectations were, and then what we thought about the film, after seeing it and now. All right. So Star Wars Episode 7, Force Awakens, they hire J.J. Abrams to direct, probably because somebody saw Star Trek and was like, hey, did you see that Star Trek movie? It's a Star Wars movie with Kirk and Spock in it. And I like the 2009 Star Trek film. But I left that movie going, there's more action in that Star Trek movie than all other Star Trek movies combined. Like if I took all the action from every Star Trek movie, it wouldn't be even close to the scale of action. And there's like a Borg battle in 8 with like 40 ships, and it's very tame. It's like, here's the camera, and here they slowly go into fight. It's like J.J. Abrams, everybody's flipping around and doing stuff. So, no, I think somebody saw that, and and there was a great story that came out afterwards, which is they offered J.J. Abrams all 3, 7, 8, and 9, but he had to sign an exclusive deal saying he would do no television and no movies and just the 3 Star Wars. And if you know anything about J.J. Abrams, he has like 40 TV shows, 3 of them that are very good, in production at any given time, and he couldn't logically walk away from that. So
there's another thing that I felt that was like really weird that hurt Star Trek. This is how intrinsic these two are at this period in time. He was announced to have been making this when Into Darkness still hadn't come out.
Yeah.
So they were like, he cannot start on Star Wars until he's done with everything in Into Darkness. And I was like, I was annoyed because I was like, how much dedication are you giving to Star Trek if you're already like, I got to finish this to go do Star Wars? And I felt like Into Darkness suffered because of that. That's just a weird aside. So I just need to point that out.
I don't know what happened with Into Darkness, but it definitely suffered. And we all suffered with it. So, but yeah. So he gets announced he's going to do this. They release photos of the table read, and we see all of our favorite Star Wars actors in the room together again.
My favorite bit about that, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No.
I hope you're not finding this as interrupting. My favorite bit about that is how Mark Hamill is at that table read. And if you've seen Force Awakens, you know he's not on there.
Yeah.
And then finding out later that he was doing the stage instructions for the stage reading. And it's like, okay, thanks.
Mark Hamill is a goofy sweetheart. But he does he does speak his mind sometimes. That gets him into trouble. He even jokes about him speaking his mind and getting him into trouble, which we'll go into, I'm sure, later. So 7 comes out. We're all excited. The trailers look positive. It looks it's very planned, but I think, and here's where I make peace with 7, is it had to be super planned. Like, because they're starting from, again, like Mike said, episodes 1, 2, and 3. I'm sorry, you guys were big fans. You all loved them. You guys, you got that tattoo? You got that Jar Jar tattoo?
The internet existed by then, guys. We know what you said.
Yeah. I'm one of the people that I like the lightsaber battle at the end of 1, and I like 2 or 3 scenes in 3 a lot. I love the opera scene.
We're in agreement that 2 just is like,
it's the worst. I have no idea what I'm watching. I'm watching a romantic drama by somebody who couldn't be further away from his ability to write a romantic drama.
Is 2 the one that had Tom Stoppard, who did a rewrite of it? Let me look that up while we're talking, because it gets even worse when you find out who helped him with it.
That's kind of sad. Can you imagine being the guy brought in to try to help that? And be a famous playwright. Hey, I'm a famous playwright. Let me help you with some of your romance and drama.
Stoppard helped on one of them. I can't remember which one it was.
But I'll say the lightsaber battle with Darth Maul at the end of the first one is wonderful. It's the best lightsaber battle probably out of the first 6 films, 1 through 6. And the opera scene of seeing the Emperor persuade an Anakin is a great, this is how we turn somebody evil scene. And I really like that scene. Like, I could show you like moments that he's taking and stuff like that. So there's stuff in 3 I definitely like. There is, I don't think a thing in 2 I like. Like there is a thing in 7, 8, and 9 multiple times over. Even 9, which is a great big monkey mess. But there is nothing in 2 I like. There's nothing in 2 I can go to, like. Oh, the sound cue of Boba Fett's bombs blowing up
that
was
static,
like,
that negative static sound.
yeah, that was the one good thing. So whoever did the sound effects for that movie, you're better than everybody else on that film because you had something that stood out.
The Stopper had helped write episode 3.
If he helped with the opera scene, man, then you're still good because it's such a good scene.
So the thing with 2, I'll say I like the stuff on Tatooine. It's so dumb, but it's good. Yep. Like when Anakin kills the Tuskens, you understand why he's doing it. When he tells Padme, I killed the Tuskens, you can understand her being like, they just killed your mom. And it's implied they raped her.
Yep.
But when she's like, and then I killed the kids, she would have been like, all right, let's get home, and then we'll talk about this some more. And then the thing I hate most is on the Tatooine part, where this is the first time in the movies that it happens, where Owen comes up and he's like, yeah, this is my girlfriend Beru. And it's like, cool, now girlfriend is in the Star Wars lexicon.
Not just
like,
that.
It was bad enough that I'll see you in hell. Like, I'll see you in hell, I understand. If from Empire. But he was like, hey, Lando, this is my girlfriend, Princess Leia. That line bugs me.
Yeah. I am. Pandering to like the fan base has always been something. So
like you were saying, I'm sorry, we went off a tangent.
Yes, always.
Force Awakens 7 had to be planned.
Had to be planned. It had to be overly planned. Like, hey, we need to do this, because the fans want it and are expecting it. We also need to set up a whole new group. We need to do this. There were so many things you need to do. Now looking back, 5 years later, so I went to the ArcLight in Sherman Oaks to watch it at 10:40 or 8 p.m. I think they were doing like really early showings with a friend of mine, Matt Horowitz, and we had nice seats in a very state-of-the-art theater, one of the best viewing experiences you can have. And everybody in there had lightsabers and was going nuts, and they were loving it. Me and Matt Horowitz left episode 7 going, kind of sucked. Like that was our first feeling walking out of the theater. Like I remember saying, because we went to dinner right afterwards, and I said, I think the only new thing that I saw that I was excited about was BB-8, because he was a ball. So it was like that was about it. Everything seemed kind of either rehash or a different variance of things, to the point even you've got Han Solo at the end when they're talking about this ultimate giant planet that can destroy 5 planets. He even shrugs and goes, so it's just a bigger Death Star. It's like, man, you really don't want to be here. And I don't even know if that's in the script. Like,
does he even say big deal? Because doesn't he say like, so it's a bigger Death Star? Big deal. Like,
something like that. Like, so let's get a Luke here. Who's Luke? It's really, that's.
What a way to find out that my Force Awakens 4K disc from the Ultimate Collection is scratched, but my TV freezing in the middle of our recording.
Oh,
that's weird. Continue. I'm sorry.
So, I go in, watch Force Awakens. I was underwhelmed. I went in with a lot of high hopes. I thought, because here's what I thought. You need to start Star Wars over, and it's going to go on for 50 years, making a movie every year, every 2 years. Then you need to inject some serious, steroids into this body. You need to really give us open stuff up. You've got to open up this world. And they didn't. They did a reboot of episode 4. Safe. That's safe. There's nothing wrong with that. And they absolutely knew what they were doing, because the first line of the movie is, this will set things right again. That is the first spoken word by a human in the movie. And that couldn't be, there's subtlety and there's that. Like there's just like, oh man, you guys are really like, hey, we know things have been, either 100% or zero on Star Wars in the last 30 years. We're going to try to set things right. Cut to um, our first new character, Finn, who is a stormtrooper who becomes the audience point of view character, and it might be my favorite audience point of view character in a long time. Like, for those who don't know, in movies, sometimes they have an audience point of view character who doesn't know the world. So he's going to ask questions so that our leads can explain things to them. Uh, Finn undermines this by saying, I know what you're going to tell me. And he has no idea what anybody's going to tell him, which is a brilliant comedy trick on that trope of if you had, you know, a famous audience point of view character probably would be like Winston from the Ghostbusters, who shows up to ask a bunch of questions that they need to explain to the audience. But he's a very odd audience point of view character because he comes in 40 minutes into the film.
Yeah.
Which is
did I talk to you about that, or did you hear anything about that recently where I don't know if it's revealed is the right word, but that Winston was in it from much earlier, and that they just wanted to have more jokes with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, that they basically wrote him in after that. Like, he was written in the Biltmore and was part of them catching Slimer, but they were like, I don't have enough jokes early on in the movie. And it's like, oh, we'll just take them from him. And it's like, that's some fucked up stuff.
Yeah. Well, the making of Ghostbusters is a hilarious mess. That movie is brilliant, and that's shocking. That goes to show that you never know, because that movie should not be watchable.
Yeah.
If you learn about the making of it and all of its fun history. But an audience point of view character is somebody who normally is there to get exposition out. So you've got this book from the pyramid. What happens if we read it? Oh, mummies come out. Like, there's got to be that person that asks the question because the audience doesn't know. I hate audience point of view characters. I hate them. I sit there and just stare at the screen. Our heroes or villains can be giving us exposition. Back in the day, it was the villain who gave us the exposition every time. And I was happy with this. The problem with the world? I'm not controlling it, but now I will with my super ray. Like, it's like villains used to give us everything we needed to know. And only one man can stop me, but he needs a special gem to stop me. And so, good luck, world. And so we used to have that. Now we have the audience point of view character who always asks this. Finn is a stormtrooper who was taken by birth. He goes out on his first mission, and he watches them slaughter old people, kids.
So you don't even know that it's his first mission. They never really established that. So it bugs me if, like, he's been killing this whole time, and then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I'm out. Like,
and that might be projecting, but it's like, he won't even pull the trigger. So it's got to be early on if he's not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Like, if all of his other missions, we find out he's in what is it, sanitary. He's been cleaning. He's a janitor, which is I think a joke back to episode 4 when them being trapped in a trash compartment. The fact that our audience point of view character does that.
Is that what it was? Because even that falls flat for me, because it's like, okay, haha, but you're like, I was a janitor. Because he even says janitor, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so now there are janitors in the Star Wars universe. Okay.
Yeah.
Make a space word for it or something.
Yeah. So, or fancy it up. Fancy it up. Yeah. So he shows up, he won't do it. And then they capture some rebels, one of which is this young, rugged, shoot first, ask question later, Poe. Finn saves Poe. They crash on a desert planet where he meets Rey, which is a wonderful sort of comedy moment about what people think is what they should be doing and what's actually happening, which is Finn keeps trying to save Rey, and Rey keeps having to save Finn, which I thought was fun and cute, which then builds up to us to seeing the Millennium Falcon and her getting it, and then through very wacky writing, Han Solo finds them in the most forced writing ever in history.
The movie goes off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've noted before, and I'll say it on my part. Who would have thought that Han Solo showing up would be what derails a Star Wars movie?
It's one of the things I talked about after I saw the film was, wow, that had a lot of Han and Chewie and Leia in it, and I didn't care about any of them. Like, I really was upset we weren't focusing on Rey, Finn, Poe, and Kylo. I liked all of our 4 new characters. I like them.
I cared. I wanted more. I wanted more of the scenes where Han and Leia are like reconciling, or 3PO talking to Han. Like, if you're going to go so far as to have him like shoehorn himself in the movie and give that big speech with the map about how Luke was real, but then you're going to then pull him out when he's with the other characters, it's like, what are you doing? Like, give us what you think we want, instead of giving it to us in this forced way. Because go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Sorry. I went into the movie thinking, I'm here for my old friends. I want to see Luke. I want to see R2 and C3PO and Han and Leia. And an hour and a half into Force Awakens, can we please get away from these people and focus on Poe, Rey, and Finn? Because they were interesting. And it might have been by accident, or it might have been by design. I really was impressed with how Rey is literally living in the shells of the old movies. She's living in these destroyed ships on a desert planet, wearing the hat of old rebel fighters. She has no place, but she knows she lives in this world, but she has no place. And I just thought that was such a brilliant way to start with our new hero. Our audience point of view character was a stormtrooper, saw what they did not want to be a part of it anymore, ran away.
Something just hit me about Last Skywalker again. That not Last Skywalker. Sorry, the Last the Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. Yeah.
That, as you were saying this, like, I'll have to bring up when we get to that point, because I don't know if anyone wants to go back, but the look on my face had to have been like, but it just something just connected for me, and I was like, okay, sorry.
All right. Okay, we'll get to that when we get to it. I liked all the reveals in the movie, and it set up stuff that, of course, made us all wonder. Han Solo gets Rey to the planet with a bar on it, and it's like, get out of here, kid. Never caught your name. It's Rey. And it's like, well, want to join me and Chewie on our ship for forever? And it's like, then there's this cutaway scene of, who's the kid you're with at the bar? Let me tell you. And it cuts away. So there's all this buildup that she might be something important, which we'll go into the other movies. But definitely that sort of intrigue has always been in some of the Star Wars movies, and I was really excited to learn about it. And God knows geeks were blowing stuff up for the next year. She's Luke's kid. She's Kenobi's kid. She's, they literally guessed everybody but what they went with.
I saw someone say that she was cloned from Luke's hand, and it's like, come on.
I don't know. I'm for fans. I remember when I was a kid, the first Star Wars gossip I heard was that Obi-Wan Kenobi was a clone from the Clone Sagas because he was Obi-Wan. One. And there's an Obi-2, and as a kid, little fat-headed James was like, like, oh my God, there's a bunch of Obis out there.
It's neat to think that, and it's fun to think that at the time. I remember one of the rumors that I had always heard, either from Cinefantastique or Cinescape or something, was that Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill were going to star in the prequels, and Harrison Ford was going to play Obi-Wan, and Harrison Ford was going to play Anakin, and Mark Hamill was going to be Obi-Wan, and that was going to be like a twist on the characters. And it was like, that sounds cool.
That does sound cool.
Looking back, it's like, no. I don't know what you would do with that. Yeah. But I mean, there were so many rumors back then between Jedi and Phantom Menace that sound cool. But I was always of the school of, hey, once a movie comes out and it's not what's happening, it's okay to let those die.
Yeah.
But now, like that, these three movies are out. The problem I see are people saying, "Let's sign a petition to remake Last Jedi
Yeah.
with this story." It's like, go to hell. Like,
Yeah.
do your own thing, man.
Again, this is art for profit. And that's the nicest way to say it. Some of it is garbage for profit,
This is
but
content. This
yeah,
is
it's
no
content.
longer like,
That's the most neutral way to describe it all. It's just content for profit. Okay. So you do with it whatever you want. So but we would like to make a profit of it. Yeah, I felt that there was a lot of intrigue into seven. There was a lot of moments in seven. Uh a lot of people were upset at Kylo Ren, which is funny because like the haters of the Star Wars trilogy really hated Kylo Ren in the first one. Then they loved him by the second and third one,
yeah.
which is odd. It's like, hey, stick to your guns, would you? I
Well,
liked Kylo Ren because we hadn't seen him before in the Star Wars universe.
Mhm.
We had seen the ultimate badass, Darth Vader. The worst thing you could do is just give us another Darth Vader. We had seen the I'm so fucking deadly, I don't even speak, and we had seen the master controller controlling everybody. So those three, whoosh, gone. You cannot have any of those three. I don't want to see a Darth Maul. I don't want to see a Darth Vader. I don't want to see an Emperor Palpatine. What you gave us was emo Vader, where he is just kind of like whiny bitchy, and he is obsessed with Darth Vader, which I thought was again interesting take. I liked that he didn't have his emotions in check, and his stupid lightsaber with the stupid hilts and the stupid extra sparkly stuff coming out because it's extreme fit that character.
I
It's
did like the theory as much as I just said I don't like theories. I did like the theory, and I wonder. I'll have to look. As much as I talk crap about these movies, I have all the making of books of them. I'll have to see if it's like actual like part of the canon where his saber is like that because he isn't adept at making sabers. So he wants it to be a cool saber, but it has to vent off because he doesn't know how to make one. And it's like, I like that. I like that it's like, hey, good enough.
Yeah. An interview J.J. Abrams gave about the saber, he said all the other sabers are very clean, and we wanted Kylo Ren's to be sparking and problematic because he's sparking problem, like an extension of him. So whatever reason they give, like, oh, the crystal he used was cracked, or whatever the fuck they want to give us.
No, do you want to know what it is in actual canon now? Red lightsabers are only evil ones because the red is the blood of the Kyber that they've corrupted. Yeah, it's like, all right, guys.
Wow.
Let's just say he got a red crystal and be done with it.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm gonna be freaked out if I ever see a kid with a red lightsaber. Like, who did you murder? So, so seven happens. It's a New Hope. They blow up the planet. They save everybody. We did not get our Han Solo death. Harrison Ford got his Han Solo death, who has hated this character, feels put out every time somebody brings it up to him, and he got killed. I like the Ben reveal. Geeks that I was watching the movie with the first time did not like it. They were like, that's forced. They wouldn't name their kid Ben. They met because of Ben. I thought that was sweet. Is it dumb? Is it pandering? Sure. But so is most of life. Most of life is dumb and pandering. So they met because of Ben Kenobi. So for them to name their son Ben, I thought was sweet.
They named him Ben because they were a big fan of the pod racer Ben Quadraneros.
And who isn't? I mean, that guy
that apple-looking motherfucker.
But he knows how to race.
Yeah. He owns it.
Yeah,
he owns that apple.
So, I liked all that. I liked the death scene. It's cheesy, but the Star Wars is cheesy. We just need to accept that as part of it.
Yeah.
Literally in the first movie, the bad guys are wearing, the ultimate bad guys wearing black and the good guys wearing white. We got to accept that these things have a certain level of cheese to them. And I have to do something, but I don't have the strength to do it. Will you help me with it? Han Solo thinks he's coming back to him, and he is trying to kill his father so he can permanently cross over. If he kills off his parents, he can permanently cross over to the dark side. Two people having the same conversation about two different topics to them. I understood what was happening in the theater the first time I was watching it, and I dug it. Ate it with a spoon. So I left Star Wars Episode 7 going, that was kind of a letdown. It was just 4. Nothing new was introduced. It was rehash of everything we already know. And it introduced us to 4 really fun, cool characters and made them stand on the sideline. Made them like, hey, you're in this and you're our leads. Now stand over there while we take care of this shit. And I understand that from a planning point of view. Like, we're going to do 30 years of this. You're going to probably be playing these characters for the next 15 years. This movie, we're introducing you and we are saying goodbye to some very important characters, at least one very important character, and you need to stand on the sidelines while we do that. I understand that more now. When I left the theater, I was like, what a letdown. What was your experience on the first one?
Excitement. Ever since the announcement of Lucasfilm being bought by Disney, and that meaning that 3 movies were coming out, I couldn't wait, because the announcement wasn't Disney buys Lucasfilm. The announcement was Disney buys Lucasfilm, and we're making 7, 8, and 9. Everything you've heard is true. There is a 7, 8, and 9. We have an outline from George Lucas, and it's coming out.
You're such a positive human. You're so positive that you was
have
like
no
excited.
reason.
Okay, all right. So
I remember. I mean, it's funny. I have that bad robot statue behind me.
I saw it.
I saw it. And I remember the day it was announced, I had a Vader ornament, and I put them next to each other, and I was like, hell yeah, because I mean, good for them, you know. It came out. I remember seeing it by myself in my theater in New Jersey, and being so excited to see it. I couldn't wait for the day to be over. It was 2 days before it was coming out, and I'd heard Han had died. We all knew Han was going to die. Like, we all knew that.
I'm sure he put it in the contract. I'm sure he put it in the contract. Like, I'll come back. You murder me.
So that was spoiled for me. But I think I'm of 2 minds of how I feel about these Star Wars movies. They've succeeded, they've made a lot of money, and they've gotten a lot of new fans, and Star Wars is going to be around for a long time. And it's succeeded, and I'm glad that something from my childhood is going to outlive me and is going to mean a lot to a lot of people. I think it means different things to people now, and I don't know if it's my thing to say that's not Star Wars, or I don't like it for this reason or not, because it has outgrown me. It is no longer my thing. The movie was okay. I've already said I didn't like when Han Solo showed up as much as like that excited me. At my theater in New Jersey, we had 2 giant video walls on either side of our massive lobby. And for the 2 months leading up to it, it played the Star Wars trailer on a loop. It was a trailer loop, and it played a lot of other things, but it showed Star Wars a couple times in that loop.
Yeah.
And there was nothing more exciting than the swelling of the music and the Han and Leia theme while the Falcon was flying, and it was getting me pumped. And the movie excited me, and it was good, but it just felt wrong. Han derails it, and Han derails it. His entire storyline derails it for me, because I think, and to put it back to Star Trek on this one, these characters, by making them 30 years older and giving us these, what ended up being the final days of the lives of these heroes, isn't something I want from my fiction. I don't want to know how Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia died. I doubly don't want to know that Han and Leia got divorced because their kid was psycho and Luke couldn't deal with it and he fucking hightailed it. It is giving them flaws, and it is making them realistic people that not everyone lives happily ever after. But I don't want that in my space fantasy. I want to imagine that they had the Ewok celebration and they went off and had many more adventures, but they won, and they did live happily ever after. I want that in my space fantasy. This did not. This put some realism in space opera. And I didn't want that. I don't want my heroes to die. So that's what was weird for me. I can accept Indiana Jones is going to die someday because he is just a man. Han Solo is an archetype, and to
Hmm.
have him die the way that he did, you can make these movies, make it make sense and give it a poignancy, but I didn't want that for Han Solo. And it's a problem that you get with Star Trek. Like I said, bringing it back to Star Trek, I used to believe for a long time that you couldn't reboot Star Trek because Shatner, Nimoy, and Bones or DeForest Kelley are so iconic as those characters that you wouldn't be able to do that. And I always said I think you can reboot and recast the Next Generation, but for some reason the original series is untouchable. They
Hmm.
proved me wrong. Like, I love the characters in the new movies,
Yeah.
but also that's different where there's no space magic and there's no destiny in Star Trek,
Yeah.
except for Star Trek 2009. There's no destiny in those movies. So it's okay that Shatner's Kirk dies helping Picard and dies in a very mundane way because he's just a man. In this world of space fantasy, to have Han Solo die the way that he did was frustrating. To have him die at all was sad. To have him die that way was frustrating because I didn't want that. But I still liked the movie. I liked the sense of unknowingness that it gave me. If I watch a Marvel movie, going back to Endgame, I knew they were going to win at the end. I
Hmm.
didn't know who was going to die. I knew someone had to die. So it was like, oh shit, is Cap going to die in this battle?
Yeah.
Is Thor going to get killed in this battle? I was surprised that Tony died.
Hmm.
I was like, there's got to be some way. Something's going to happen. They're going to bring him back to life. That hologram of him at the end is going to be like an AI hologram. Like, he
Yeah.
found a way to live. So them shutting that down was crazy to me. But like I was saying, I knew someone was going to die. I knew that based on what happened after Hulk snaps his fingers and based after Hawkeye's wife calling, that everybody was back. And it was just a matter of them showing up. And the way that they showed up, I didn't know they were going to come through the portals the way that they did, and that blew my mind. But I knew that was coming. In Star Wars, I did not know what was coming because they had thrown out all the books, they'd thrown out all the extended
Yeah.
universe stuff. So this was all brand new, uncharted territory. I couldn't imagine, like you would say with Thanos. You know, Thanos is eventually going to get the gauntlet. You know, Thanos is eventually going to win before they get him. You don't know what's happening in Star Wars. So that gave Force Awakens this excitement that I palpably felt every step of the way. When Leia landed and came out of that lander, I was like, what are these two characters going to talk about now? Especially since they'd already revealed that Kylo was their son. I thought that was a big misstep, that towards the beginning of the movie, Snoke just goes, "You, the son of Han Solo." And it's like,
Hmm.
well, okay, no mystery there. Thanks, JJ. Like,
Hmm.
you're subverting things by just saying you're the son of Han Solo. And it's like, whatever. When Leia steps out, the excitement of not knowing what's going to happen between them was cool. 3PO coming in between them and saying like, "Oh my God, it's Han Solo!" I laughed out loud. I was like, "Okay."
Funniest moment, honestly, maybe out of the three films. Like, I laughed, and the fact that he wanted to point out his red arm, you didn't recognize me because I have a red arm now. Like,
And he doesn't give a shit.
yeah, doesn't know, like, Han Solo doesn't give a shit, like, but 3PO doesn't know not to ruin that moment. That was beautiful. That was chef's
But
kiss.
it builds to not know what's happening. The most excited I was in the entire movie was Kylo on the bridge and Han walking up, because you don't know what his name is. What is Han going to say? Is he going to say Jason, which
Mhm.
was the name in the books of his twins? Was he going to say Jason? Was he going to say Ben? Was he going to say Anakin? What was he going to say? And when he said Ben, for me, it was like, okay, so now it was weird because it's like this universe is now coalescing into something. Okay, Ben, this is going to lay the foundation for the next few movies. His son's name is Ben. That gives an extra added like twist to this whole stuff because he's Ben, but he's evil, and what's going to happen here, even though you know he's going to die. But it was like that excitement for what's going to happen being so out there, and then Luke at the end getting there, and then it just ending with Luke not saying a word was like, that's crazy, that's exciting.
Yeah.
But to what end?
Yep.
You didn't need Han to die.
No.
You have Finn, who was this cool character the whole time, now sidelined because instead of having the mystery of who Kylo Ren is, the mystery is who's the Jedi. Is it Rey or Finn? Just felt hollow, and it felt like there was all this cool potential that then turned into what it turned into. And I now look back at it and say, okay, that's the story they were going for, and they succeeded, but it's not what I wanted.
See,
And I can enjoy the movie but not like it.
yeah, everybody said that, and I never got that from that with Finn. Is Finn the Jedi? And Finn's greatest battle, and I would argue of all three movies, is with random stormtrooper who yells out "traitor" and like throws down. Which that got me excited because it was like, holy shit! The stormtroopers not only talk to each other, but like they're like bros. They like have a system, and he went against it. I honestly, when he grabbed the lightsaber, for me, it mirrored the opening of him trying to save Rey, and he can't. And so I was like, oh my God, I was afraid he's gonna get murdered right there.
I
And I was
thought he
like,
was dead.
I thought that would be so sad because I like this character so much. And I was like, he's trying to save Rey again. She doesn't need saving. You need saving. And that's your arc, buddy. And I really I thought Kylo Ren was good. It was not going to be like a joke. It was going to be like whomp and dead.
Yeah.
And him cut in half. And I was just like, that'd be so sad because I like this character so much.
So here's what I don't like about it, though, like what you're saying in terms of that, in terms of like subverting expectations. It went nowhere. It was just a retread of episode 4, which it needed to from a business standpoint. You need to reel these people in, but it didn't offer anything new. And if people were arguing for something new that they wanted, you get that in episode 8, but then people wholesale rejected that.
Yep.
And it's like, what do you want? Do you want it to be exactly the same, or do you want it to venture into new territories? And I think people just have a hard time deciding what they want from their Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem, though. So that's what I felt watching the movie. Watching it again, I picked up on a lot of stuff that really frustrated me. That has to do with J.J. Abrams as a director and as a creator. Now, I say this again, saying that I have a bad robot statue.
Yeah.
I love Lost. I love the majority of the things he's produced, but I can still find flaws in them, and I can find flaws in him as a director. He does something that I don't think anybody else cares about, but drives me up the wall. And it's the perfect example of it is in Force Awakens. At the end, there's a fight between Rey and Finn. Between Kylo and Finn. Finn drops the lightsaber, and then Rey claims it, and it flies into her hands. And then you realize she has the Force, and Kylo is like, okay, we're going to fight now. The music that plays when she gets the lightsaber is the music that plays in Star Wars when Luke gets back to his homestead and Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru are burnt to death. So the music that he's choosing for that triumphant moment is the music when Luke finds his uncle and aunt murdered. Yeah. Like I don't get that choice, because if you listen to the soundtrack, it's a different cue. The music builds, she gets the lightsaber, and it plays like a stirring version of the Force theme, but it's not that. So JJ decided, let's play that familiar music from the other movie, no matter the context of it.
Yeah.
But because it's recognizably Star Wars, we're going to play that. And that, I think, familiarity and the leaning on that crutch is why I dislike Rise of Skywalker so much. Because here's a moment that's like, here is our new character. This character is the character we're going to be following. She has the Force. Shit's going to go down. But her musical introduction as that character is music that has no context for that moment or that scene. and it shows you that he's more interested in the iconography of Star Wars and not the storytelling of Star Wars. And that right there is how I feel about his two movies, where his heart's in the right place and it's Star Wars, but is it Star Wars?
Yeah.
And that's the problem that I have with those ones.
So I would, I knew, Rey was the Jedi that was supposed to be our hero at the end, because we have the scene in the bar with, what's the little CGI
Maz
character?
Kanata.
Maz Kanata. This was Darth Vader's lightsaber, then it was Luke's, and now it calls to you. And it was like, cool. This character's been set up, and she's of some importance, and she's done nothing but hit on Chewbacca the whole time, which is fine. That's kind of nice that somebody likes Chewbacca romantically, other than the Christmas holiday special of seeing Chewbacca's family. We see that, so I was like, okay, she's somebody important, and I want to. So let's find, and Han agrees to take her on permanently when he finds out her name. So I was like, she's somebody of real importance, and that gets your mind flowing with who could this be. So when we went to the last battle, Finn was doing what Finn does, which to me is, I'm going to save the day because I'm the audience point of view character that thinks he's the hero, and I love that. That is the smartest, fun audience point of view character ever. So I'm just glad they didn't murder him, because that would have been easy to do.
Well, speaking of murdering him, another reason why, in hindsight and finding out about these movies, kind of ruins them for me, is that Poe Dameron was supposed to get killed in that TIE fighter crash in the beginning of the movie. But then they liked Oscar Isaac so much in the beginning, they were like, let's just bring him back at the end and have him be another character. And it's like, come on, that shows you have no plan for any of these things. If you do that, that's like saying, you know what, we liked having Alec Guinness around. Let's have him not have been killed by Vader. He just beamed himself back onto the Falcon.
Yeah.
Like it's dumb.
But we've had this all the way through Star Wars. Why is Harrison Ford frozen at the end of Empire?
Yeah, he didn't know if he wanted to come back.
He didn't know if he wanted to come back. So it's like, well, introduce another Han Solo. Here's Lando. He's Han Solo but hipper, and we'll move on. And so
I think there's a big difference though between that happening between movies and then like in the middle of filming being like, I like him. Let's have him not be dead. And it's like, okay, so he comes back and what does he do? Shoot stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really well. Like that scene where Finn again, as a good audience point of view character should, it feels our emotions of we see an X-Wing shoot a TIE fighter, another TIE fighter swing around, two more TIE fighters, and then some people on the ground and fly away, and Finn goes, whoa, that's some flying. Like,
yeah.
Which I get that's cheesy and dumb. Again, these films are a little cheesy and dumb, but I felt that way. I felt like
No, and I think that's the problem that I have. If I want to say what I like and dislike about this movie, I like the potential that was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the movie enough that I've rewatched it, but it's not a go-to to rewatch because it feels sad, and I don't want that in my fiction. I don't want that in my science fiction. The reason I believe that the novels lasted as long as they did and came out steadily from like 91 until like they're still coming out, but they came out right up into 2015 when those movies were coming out. They were aging up. And by the time like the 2014-15 books, the new Jedi Order and stuff, they were age appropriate. They were like in their like late 50s, late 60s, but they were still heroic. They weren't guy ran out, which I don't have a problem with Luke running out, but I don't want him to run out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have a problem with what they did, but I don't want that. And it's weird to be saying that. I think Han definitely would ditch Leia and go back to living as a smuggler, but I don't want him to do that. But I can appreciate that he did that. So it's a strange like love and hate with these three movies.
I completely understand what you're saying. I think like Don Quixote always hit me hard, and it took me a long time to come to terms with Don Quixote, because like the Don Quixote book is a crazy man thinks he's a knight. I'm gonna be a knight, and then everybody around him is like, he wants to be a knight, just let him be a fucking knight, you know. And he goes on all these wacky adventures, and then the last section of the book is, I'm not a knight, I'm just a foolish old man, and he goes and he dies a foolish old
Yeah.
man. And that's a real pull the rug out from underneath you. um but that's kind of important when we're talking about fantasy versus reality, which I think Don Quixote talks about way more than Star Wars ever would. Star Wars is just fantasy. But if we're trying to find truth in it, as far as like seeing these characters grow up, there comes a point when you create something, and if it becomes so popular, it kind of belongs to the public. And if you don't write an end to your story, the public will write it for you. So now
I'd
that,
rather write an ending, though. I would rather in my head imagine, hey, this is what happens eventually.
yeah,
I don't like the idea of a movie saying, no, he was killed by his son on a
yeah,
catwalk and there's no body to recover because he fell to
yeah,
the core of the planet
yep.
and then the planet exploded. Like,
It's
there is
why,
no more Han Solo. He does not exist
yeah,
anymore.
it's why like certain fantasy movies took that road. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, they're right off into the sunset. Like Spielberg's talked about it before he made part 4, you know, where he was like, we ended it with them riding
Yeah.
off into the sunset. Is done. A movie I love that has been a bit forgotten, but The Adventures of Baron Munchausen literally has a fantastical character at the end. Lift up his horse, a sunbeam hits him, and he disappears. And it's like, yeah, was he ever here? Was he not? It's up to you. It's fantasy. Like, but he did his job. He saved the kingdom and the world, and now he, you know, belongs to the ages. So,
But I think that's the problem. You have that danger and framework where Luke, Han, and Leia are such iconic characters, and they're from such an iconic space fantasy that you either have them all survive and live happily ever after throughout the sequel trilogy, or you kill them all. And they went to the kill them all choice, and I don't think those characters deserved that, and I don't think viewers deserved that.
I think these films became so big, or I'm not going to say important because that sounds weird, so big that they had to pass the baton. They
I
just,
understand passing the baton, but not at the sacrifice of making a finite ending for these characters.
all right. Yeah, you do have a valid point, man. So that's our feelings on episode 7.